Everyone needs to recognize that the carpetbaggers from the Department of Justice are not the solution.
Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell is not happy the DOJ investigated Phoenix PD, but they did. The results were very bad, and in the DOJ's report, it does talk about MCAO and its role in a major scandal. I'm ABC15 Chief Investigator Dave Biskobing. This is another story in our special series, breaking down the DOJ's report and turning it into video. And we're covering page 77. It's the part of the report where the feds talk about how police and prosecutors work together to invent a gang and falsely charge protesters as members.
After having read the so-called DOJ report, I'm even more concerned.
The county attorney is mad about the DOJ report, and she said a bunch of false things about it.
This report is nothing more than a politically driven document.
But before we show you more from Rachel Mitchell, let's cover what the DOJ actually wrote in a breakout section titled The Genesis of the Gang Charges. Quote, the Maricopa County Attorney's Office and Phoenix PD have blamed each other for the failures that led to the gang charges. MCAO's degree of involvement in the constitutional violations we have identified is beyond the scope of our review. However, the Arizona Bar ruled in December 2023, after a multi-day evidentiary hearing, that the MCAO prosecutor responsible for the gang charge prosecution should be suspended from the practice of law for 2 years for, among other things, her role bringing these charges.
Start with an update from the ABC15 investigators. For the first time, we're hearing from the fired prosecutor who worked with police to invent a gang and then falsely charge protesters as members. April Sponsel taking the stand in her own state bar trial as she fights to keep her law license, even breaking down in the middle of her testimony.
More than a dozen protesters were charged as a criminal street gang in 2020. We exposed the case, and we were the only news outlet there to cover the state bar's full trial.
Did you believe you had sufficient evidence for a reasonable likelihood of conviction?
Yes, and the evidence was actually getting better each day.
Email communications show that the idea for charging protesters as members of a street gang likely originated with Phoenix PD's anti-terrorism task force. And in September 2020, the sergeant for the protest strike team contacted the county attorney's office, saying he wanted to talk about building conspiracy and syndicate-type cases as it relates to protest/demonstration activities.
The next chapter in our politically charged investigation.
Our investigation revealed the gang case was built on wild lies, and the scandal was one of, if not the main reason, the DOJ launched its investigation into Phoenix PD.
Phoenix Police and the Maricopa County Attorney's Office claim they're more dangerous than notorious gangs like the Crips and the Bloods. Community groups and legal experts say that's outrageous and an obscene abuse of power.
So now back to the county attorney.
The downtown protests.
Here's what she said at a press conference held at the police union.
The DOJ report implied and really, frankly, stated that had the state bar not come into my office to clean house, that things would have not changed. And I was going to say that's nonsense. That's a lie.
That's made up. It says nothing like that at all. Again, this is all the report says about the state bar and MCAO. The Arizona Bar ruled in December 2023, after a multi-day evidentiary hearing, that the MCAO prosecutor responsible for the gang charge prosecution should be suspended from the practice of law for 2 years.
Lawyers in my office spotted the problem, and they raised it to the highest levels of leadership at the time. I know this for a fact because I was one of those lawyers.
That's not true either.
In an emailed response, MCAO denied the cases are political and says a grand jury found enough evidence for the charges.
MCAO stood by the gang case for months, from October 2020, when it started, until February 2021. That's when we launched our politically charged series, exposing the entire thing as bogus.
I testified against her at the state bar hearing. Other attorneys in my office testified against her at the state bar hearing. Nobody was okay with what happened that she did.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Mitchell did testify. That is true. But it's not true when she said nobody was okay with what happened. The truth is, multiple high-level prosecutors were more than okay with the gang case. At the state bar trial, 2 even testified that they agreed with the charges.
They were both fine with it. They were like, it sounds like you got the evidence.
As we showed you earlier in the trial, Goddard himself testified that was true and even got approval from then County Attorney Alistair Adell.
And you concurred, correct?
Yes.
Did you run it up the chain of command?
Yes.
Who did you run it to?
Alistair Adell.
The county attorney.
Yes.
Sherry LeCrone, Sponsol's direct supervisor, also testified that she approved of how the gang case was handled. To be clear, Rachel Mitchell wasn't even the county attorney when the gang case began. And again, all of this is well documented. It's really not disputable. If you want to see more about these false protest charges or read the DOJ report for yourself, go to abc15.com/DOJ. I'm investigator Dave Biskobing, ABC15, Arizona.
Dave, thanks. Phoenix has not said how it'll respond to the DOJ report, but Mayor Kate Gallego telling us the city is moving forward on some of the DOJ's recommendations, including hiring more 911 operators. Gallego not saying if the city will agree to a consent decree.
These are long processes. Even in the cities that sign immediately, you may not see an agreement for more than a year. So we just ask everyone to be patient and know that we are going to keep working to improve the city.
By the way, the mayor is at the Democratic National Convention this week in Chicago.